So good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege for me to be here today and share this with all of you, both in person and for those of you online. Money laundering is amongst the most difficult financial crime activities to detect, presenting a complex and ever-changing data challenge. Its impact is far-reaching, and not just restricted to the financial sector, but affecting society as a whole, fueling corruption, organised crime and terrorism, as well as distorting markets and undermining trust in the integrity of the financial system. It's a global problem and a costly one, and I just want to spend a couple of minutes just putting this into perspective before we get into the project. It's estimated to represent 2 to 5% of global GDP, so approximately $2 to $5 trillion. But despite global efforts to combat money laundering, it's estimated that only 1% of illegal proceeds are seized by authorities, so approximately 20 to 50 billion. Yet the cost of financial crime compliance reached $274 billion in 2022, and that's up 28% just from 2020. Now, this is all made increasingly complex by an expanding digital landscape. And just in the last 12 months alone, there's been a 20% increase in financial crimes involving digital technologies and AI in the EMEA region. To further compound this, filing volumes of suspicious activity reports continue to increase year on year. And for example, there was a 57% increase between 2019 and 2020 just in the US alone, creating additional costs of resource burdens and also financial institutions and authorities. Now, defensive over-reporting is one source of this, but there are other issues that this causes. Higher penalties and the risk of sanctions sometimes outweigh the cost of retaining certain customers who are then de-risked through account closures or refuse the ability to open accounts, which then contributes to financial exclusion, as well as having an impact on correspondent banking. This is because financial institutions stand at the front lines and bear most of the responsibility for preventing and detecting suspicious activities. But they face challenges. Their data and systems are often siloed, and they're unable to share information with other institutions. But criminals, on the other hand, typically operate in networks and use complex layering techniques and creative methods to move and hide money across different institutions and countries. But the technology and data that we have access to today, like AI and privacy technologies, could be used in better combating money laundering across institutions and borders. Project Aurora does exactly this and investigates how the latest technologies can be applied to this problem. And in phase one, we tested a combination of technologies that were identified in the Financial Action Task Force's work on digital transformation, of AML and CFT efforts. And those included us testing AI, machine learning, federated learning, privacy technologies, and network analysis. We began by creating a synthetic data set representing cross-border transactions with money laundering activities, such as money muling, and these are very hard to detect activities, embedded in the data. On the left, you'll see an example of the patterns representing these suspicious activities in the data. And in the right, you'll see an example of a one-day transaction network across several countries, with the red dots and lines indicating those suspicious activities. This data set then allowed us to compare siloed, national, and cross-border analysis of payments transaction data for money laundering activities. Now, you can see from these results that AI and machine learning can be much more effective than rules-based methods, even when working in silos. And is optimal, as you can see from the yellow, when you're using the broadest set of data, i.e. at a cross-border level. And using graph neural networks helped us detect, on average, 3 times more money laundering, whilst also reducing false positives by up to 80%. These results are promising, but in order to share certain information between public and private collaborators in combating financial crime. The protection of privacy and sensitive information is critical. And in AML efforts, it's a tricky balancing act between legal compliance, protecting individual rights, and privacy. Expanded use of data can catalyze innovation, but carries both tremendous opportunity and risk. And we've heard from Mariam earlier around actually how critical the use of privacy and privacy technologies in AI efforts can be. And this is where privacy technologies can really help and are becoming increasingly important, particularly in an AI world. So allow me just to talk about this for a minute. Privacy technologies can protect users' personal data from unauthorized access and misuse, and could also enable the safe, ethical, and effective use of that data. They could also help with compliance with data protection regulations and could provide organizations other means to secure data and minimize potential breaches. They could also help organizations and nations to collaborate without actually sharing the data itself. And we know that there's been some great work being done between the UK and US on that through a PT challenge. And this is particularly critical in fields where sharing sensitive data could lead to important innovation, but come with privacy and data sovereignty challenges. It's also important to remember that privacy technologies are still evolving and therefore come with a number of trade-offs, come with limitations that need to be better understood and ultimately overcome. Back to the project. In the next part of the project, we tested the application of privacy technologies before reapplying machine learning and network analysis over the data to see if the same results could be maintained. And the reason we tested privacy technologies in this part is because they're an enabler for information sharing and collaborative analysis arrangements. So this allowed us to compare centralized and decentralized approaches to information sharing and collaborative analysis approaches, all the way from centralized national views to decentralized ones, through to cross-border approaches. Now, as I've clicked through, and what you can see as I've clicked through is that more money laundering is detected when the broadest set of data is analyzed. And here what you can see is actually how much of different types of networks and patterns that you can see through each of those stages. Combining AI, machine learning, and privacy technologies could be a game changer in AML efforts. And in this last part of the project, the threefold increase in the detection of money laundering and the 80% reduction of false positives achieved in the previous step were maintained, and sensitive information was protected. The results are promising, and some of the key findings coming out of that work were that analyzing payments data at a national or international level is optimal. However, discussions to surface key challenges that would need to be addressed, and also deeper technical research are necessary. Real-world technical proving is essential, and public-private sector collaboration is absolutely crucial. A digital world requires a different approach to AML efforts. So with that in mind, I'm excited to share with you a bit more about phase 2 of Project Aurora, which at a high level aims to do the following. We're going to convene and collaborate with a global community of experts and interested parties. But as I mentioned, we need to carry out various research and some practical work. And that will focus on things like data, where there's a number of issues to explore, from entity identification, entity resolution, what ISO 20082 can and can't do, where there's data gaps and other standards that would be required. But also, in a world where the identities of people and organizations can be falsified using AI, complicating AML efforts, we need to be able to trust and verify the real and valid identities, and therefore trust frameworks and verification methods would be essential. And it goes without saying that the project will have a strong focus on privacy and develop a deeper understanding into how different privacy-enhancing technologies, preserving technologies can be used and applied, but also their limitations, and also to discuss some information security considerations. But we also need to discuss ethics and responsible use of AI and the risks. And in the context of looking into what might be involved setting up these information sharing and collaborative analysis arrangements, we need to understand some of the technical and operational considerations, as well as the legal and regulatory considerations. Now, all of that will feed into an incremental series of technical work that we will do with public and private stakeholders, with the intention of identifying key challenges, running some technical tests and proving these things out, assessing the results, determining feasibility and value, and these technical tests will scale over time, and then deciding on any next steps before we do anything further. And just to finish off, just to say that we are at the beginning of a complex and very ambitious journey. This isn't going to be easy. We have to keep moving forward, though. And so we really want your help. We want to hear from experts and interested parties. Please come and talk to us. And remember, it takes a network to defeat a network. Thank you.